You won't make it without me, Leah!
You're not offering a partnership, though. You're buying me!
Do not scroll. The most interesting part is ahead. Subscribe, hit like, and leave a comment. Lee woke to a scream. Not the ordinary crow of a rooster or the bark of dogs, a scream that cut straight through the chest. She sprang from bed, her bare feet struck the cold floor, and in the same instant she saw through the window. The sky above the barn was burning orange. Dad! She flew down the stairs, hair loose over her shoulders, her nightgown a white blur in the dark. Dad, fire! Levi Yoder already stood on the porch, frozen like a pillar of salt. His face was lit by the flames eating the barn roof. His arms hung helpless at his sides. "The horses," he rasped. "Merciful God, the horses are in there." Lee did not wait. She ran across the yard. Gravel sliced her soles. Heat scorched her face. The barn doors were open. Someone had managed to throw them wide, but smoke poured out in a thick black cloud. Inside, the horses screamed, hooves beating against the walls. "Back!" A hand clamped her shoulder. "You will roast yourself alive in there." Jonas Shetler. Soot streaked his face. His shirt was wet with sweat. He shoved her aside and limped for the entrance, a wet rag tied over his mouth and nose. Lee saw him vanish into the smoke, heard the stallion shriek, and then the thunder of hooves, and the first mare burst into the yard, eyes rolled white with terror. Jonas let out a second, a third. He did not reach a fourth. A beam crashed down with a roar, sparks leaped toward the stars, and the ceiling caved inward. "There is one more," Lee whispered. "The young mare." "She is gone," Jonas panted, leaning hard against the fence. "Gone now." The clang of fire bells drew nearer. Some neighbor had run to the telephone booth. But the English Fire Company, the town fire department, came too late. The barn burned down to the foundation, leaving only charred posts and the smell of scorched wood. Lee stood by the ruins. The community was already gathering, brothers and sisters from neighboring farms, heads bowed, baskets of food and thermoses of coffee in hand. No one asked how it happened. They asked only, "What is needed?" "Barn raising," said Bishop Amos Troyer, laying a heavy hand on Levi's shoulder. "Give it a month, and a new barn will stand. That is our way." Levi nodded, but Lee saw his lips press into a thin line. She knew that looked the look of a person holding pain inside. "Dad," she said softly, once the community had dispersed to prepare lumber, "tell the truth." He did not answer. He simply turned and walked toward the house, hunched as if the whole barn lay on his back. Lee remained alone beside the ruins. She stared at the blackened ground and counted in her head. New beams, nails, shingles, feed for the horses, medicine. The numbers added into a sum that made her head swim. "We need to rake it." She flinched. Jonas stood behind her with a bucket of water. "What?" "The ash." He set the bucket down. "We need to rake it off before the building starts. They say it is good for the soil." Lee took up a rake, leaning by the fence. Her hands trembled. She gripped the wooden handle tighter so she would not drop it. "Thank you," she said without looking at him. "For the horses. I did not get them all. You got as many as you could." Jonas took the second rake. They worked in silence, pulling the ash aside, gathering nails and twisted metal into piles. "Lee." She lifted her eyes. Jonas looked at her as if he wanted to speak, but the words were stuck somewhere between his heart and his throat. "If you need help," he stopped, stepped back with a limp. "Say so." She nodded. He went back to his workshop, leaving her with the rake in her hands. That evening, Lee stood in the greenhouse, the only building left intact. The glass was smoked over but whole. Tomato seedlings stretched toward the fading light, their leaves shivering in the draft. She touched a stem so thin, so fragile. "You are not sleeping." Her father's voice. Lee did not turn. "The fans stopped," she said. "We needed to start the compressor, but it was in the barn." It was. Levi came and stood beside her. He smelled of smoke and exhaustion. "We will get a new one." "Dad," Lee turned to him. and in her voice sounded something that frightened her. With what money? Silence. Crickets cried outside. Far off, a buggy rattled along the gravel road. We will find it, Levy said at last. The community will not cover everything. Lee clenched her fists. I heard Bishop talking there have already been 3 barn raisings this year, and funds are short. They will provide lumber and labor, but no more. Then we will pray. Prayer will not buy feed for the horses. The words flew out before she could stop them. Levy flinched as if she had struck him. Lee clapped a hand over her mouth, but it was too late. I am sorry, she whispered. Dad, I am sorry, I did not. You are right, he said so quietly she barely heard. Prayer will not buy feed, but I will. She sank to the floor and hugged her knees. Through the glass, she could see the stars cold, far, indifferent. She remembered what her mother had said before she died. Take care of them, Lee. They are your community, your blood, whatever happens. Lee closed her eyes and gave herself 5 minutes. 5 minutes to be weak. Then she stood, wiped her face with her sleeve, and went to the house because in the morning she would have to feed the younger ones, find a way to start a compressor if she could get a new one, and pretend that everything was fine. The month after the fire passed in work that left no time to breathe. The barn raising brought 40 men from the community. After 3 days, the skeleton of the barn stood. After 1 week, the walls. After 2, the roof. Lee carried food, coffee, lemonade. The younger brothers Gid, 12 years old, and Samuel, 10 years old, helped gather tools. But at night, when everyone slept, Lee lay awake and counted. Even if she sold the entire crop of seedlings, and that meant June, July, and August, it would not balance. It would not. You have lost weight. Her younger sister Ruth, 16 years old, made Lee start. Lee sat at the kitchen table with a notebook of figures blurring before her eyes. I have not, Lee set the pencil down. There is just a lot of work. You are lying. Ruth sat across from her and folded her arms on the table. I can see it. Dad is lying too. He went to town yesterday and took the buggy instead of the wagon. Why? Ruth. I am not a child, Lee. There was a hardness in Ruth's voice, strange in her gentle face. Mama is gone. You carry everything, and Dad carries everything, and you both pretend it is fine. But I see the bills. I see you not eating so the food will last. Lee squeezed the pencil so hard it snapped. She opened her hand and looked at the 2 halves on her palm. It broke, she said quietly. Like everything around us, Ruth rose and went to the window. The new barn stood outside, bright, but Lee saw only dead in it. Daniel Byler asked about you. Lee's head jerked up. What? At the Sunday singing, Ruth kept her voice careful, her eyes on the yard. He said he wants to talk business, about your greenhouses. What business does Daniel have with my greenhouses? He has a store, Ruth finally turned. He sells souvenirs, furniture, quilts to tourists. He said seedlings and medicinal herbs are good merchandise. The English pay triple if they think it is authentic Amish. Lee stood so fast the chair fell. No. You will not even listen. There is nothing to listen to, Lee righted the chair, her hands shaking. We do not sell authentic Amish like a sideshow. We are not dolls in a museum. But we are poor, Ruth said it simply, without anger or pity, and getting poorer. Lee had no answer, because Ruth was right. Jonas Shetler stood in his workshop. The door creaked. Jonas did not lift his head. He knew the step. Levy. He ran the plane along the wood once more. The shaft will be ready by Tuesday. It is not about the shaft. Levy Yoder's voice was rough. May we talk? Jonas set the tool aside and wiped his hands on his apron. Levy stood in the doorway, hat in his hands, face gray from sleeplessness. Sit, Jonas pointed to the bench. Levy sat and turned the hat in his hands. He was silent a long time. Jonas waited. He knew how to wait. I took money, Levy said at last. A loan from the bank. Jonas went still. How much? 8,000. For 5 years. The silence in the shop grew thick and heavy. Jonas sat opposite, leaned forward, and laced his fingers. Does the bishop know? No, Levy looked aside. No one knows, except you. Now. Why tell me? Because you are the only one who will not judge. Levy looked back at him, and in his eyes was such weariness that Jonas felt a pain in his chest. And because I do not know what to do. If the community finds out, a bank loan, Jonas, that is not our way. We trust one another, not papers with interest. But the barn had to be built. Yes, and feed has to be bought. And Levy crushed the hat's brim. Lee is killing herself with work. She thinks I do not see, but I do. She is burning like that barn, and I do not know how to stop it. Jonas rose and walked to the workbench where the shaft lay. He ran his palm along the smooth surface. I will build a system, he said. No electricity, only mechanics. A compressor with a hand starter, belts, shafts. It will let her expand the greenhouses without breaking the ordnung. She will sell more seedlings and cover part of the debt. Daniel Byler also offered help. Jonas turned sharply. What kind? I do not know the details, Levy shrugged. But he is wealthy. His store is thriving. Maybe he. No, Jonas said it more harshly than he meant. He paused, then softened it. Daniel wants one thing: more money. He will not help. He will buy. Buy Lee? Her business, her time, her soul, if she lets him. Levy looked at him a long, searching moment. Then he nodded. You love her. It was not a question. Jonas did not answer. He turned back to the bench. The shaft will be ready by Tuesday, he repeated. Bring the compressor and I will fit the mechanism. Levy stood, put on his hat. Thank you, Jonas. Sunday singing was at the Millers', a big house with 4 bedrooms and a basement where benches stood for meetings. Lee arrived with her father and the younger ones. Ruth sat beside her, hands folded on her lap. They sang Das Loblied, an old hymn that had been sung for 4 centuries, the German words rolling like slow, solemn waves. Lee sang, but her thoughts drifted. She saw Bishop Amos on the front bench, his wife Barbara holding a small grandson. She saw Jonas in the corner. He always sat apart, as if he feared taking more space than his share. And she saw Daniel Byler opposite, in a new shirt, his beard trimmed neat. He was looking at her. Lee lowered her gaze to the page of the songbook, but she felt his attention like heat from a stove. After singing, the young people stayed for coffee and cookies, a time for talk, courtship, simple conversation. Lee wanted to leave at once, but Ruth nudged her. Stay, she whispered. For once act like a girl, not a pack mule. Lee meant to protest, but Ruth had already gone to the other girls gathered by the pie table. Lee stayed by the window, holding a cooling cup of coffee that had gone bitter. Lee owed her. She turned. Daniel Byler stood beside her, smiling the confident, warm smile of a man used to getting what he wants. Daniel, she nodded. I wanted to talk. He glanced around to see who might be listening. About your greenhouses. Ruth told me. And what do you think? Lee took a sip. Cold, bitter. I think my greenhouses are my business. Of course, Daniel was not offended. His smile only widened. But business can be bigger, much bigger. The English, the non-Amish, come here for authenticity. They pay double, triple for things made by Amish hands. Your seedlings and your medicinal herbs are gold, Lee. You just do not know how to sell the gold. And you do. Yes, I have a store, a website through an intermediary, of course. An English woman in town handles the online orders. We can list your products, and in a month you will earn what you make in a year at the local market. Lee set her cup on the sill. At what price? 50-50, Daniel said it lightly, as if offering to share a cookie. I provide the platform, delivery, marketing. You provide the goods. Fair and square. And what will Bishop Amos say about online sales? Daniel looked away, the smile thinned. Technically, I am not breaking the ordnung. The English woman runs the site. I simply receive orders. It is like a telephone booth. We use the technology, but do not own it. Technically, Lee echoed. Lee, Daniel stepped closer, his voice lower, softer. I know about the fire. I know it is hard. The community helped, but not completely. Is that true? She did not answer. She did not need to, he could read it on her face. I can help, he went on. Not only with the greenhouses. If you agree to a partnership, a long-term partnership, I can provide an advance. Say, 2,000 now. No interest. Lee felt her stomach clench. A partnership. Business, Daniel corrected quickly. Business and perhaps something more, if you are open to that. She looked at him, at the neat beard, the new shirt, the assured eyes. He was not unattractive, not a bad man, wealthy, shrewd, ambitious. Many girls would call him a good match. But when she looked at him, she felt nothing. No warmth, no spark, only a cold calculus whispering, $2,000, her father's debt, feed for the horses, the younger one's future. I will think about it, she said. Daniel's smile broadened. That is all I ask. Think it over. Let me know by the end of the week, all right? Summer season is starting. We need to be ready. He walked away, leaving Lee behind. She watched his back, how easily he moved among people, how easily he smiled, and she thought, can you sell a part of yourself to save the rest? Do not do it. She started. Jonas stood behind her, so quiet she had not heard him. What? What he is offering. Jonas looked not at her, but out the window where children played. Do not do it. You were listening. He spoke loudly. Jonas finally met her eyes, and what she saw there made her heart beat faster. Lee, Daniel will not help. He will use your labor, your name, your... My what? She heard the edge in her own voice. My purity, my obedience. Jonas, I am not a child who needs protecting. I know. Then why do you talk as if I do not understand what I am doing? Because you do not, he said it louder than he meant. Several heads turned. Jonas paused and lowered his voice to a whisper. You do not understand that Daniel is not buying a business. He is buying you, as a match, as a future wife, and when he buys, he owns. Heat flared in Lee's cheeks. What am I supposed to do? She whispered. Sit and wait while the debts crush us. Pray for a miracle. Jonas, I am tired. So tired that I fall asleep on the greenhouse floor and wake to my hands trembling even in my dreams. What am I supposed to do? He looked at her, and she saw his jaw set, his hands curl into fists. Give me a week, he said. 1 week, I will build a system for the greenhouses. You can double your yield without Daniel, without online sales. The honest way. In a week, I will work nights. Jonas, do you trust me? The question hung between them. Lee looked into his eyes, dark, serious, full of something she was afraid to name. I do, she whispered. He nodded and unclenched his fists. Then give me a week, please. She nodded. He walked away. Jonas did not sleep for 3 nights. The community talked. Of course it did. There are no secrets in a small congregation. Jonas Shetler is working for the Yoders, said Sarah Miller as Lee bought eggs. Day and night, it is good that he helps. Her tone was neutral, but Lee heard the subtext. A man who works day and night for a girl has intentions. Serious intentions. He is building a ventilation system. Lee counted out coins. For the greenhouses, a business arrangement. Of course, Sarah nodded, but a smile flickered in her eyes. Business. On Thursday evening, Jonas arrived at the greenhouses with a wagon. Ready, he said simply. Lee stepped out, wiping her palms on her apron. Show me, she said. They worked until sunset. Jonas explained every detail, how the compressor, started by hand, drove air through belts to the shafts, how the shafts turned and moved the fan blades, how the speed could be adjusted by tightening the belt. No electricity, he said, lying beneath a table to tighten the last bolt. No wires. The bishop will not be able to object. It is mechanics, like a donkey or a mill. Lee knelt beside him, watching his fingers move quick and sure. He knew every bolt and nut as if they were part of him. "Jonas," she said quietly, "why are you doing this?" His hands stilled. A long pause. Then he slid out, sat with his back against a wooden post. His face was blackened with soot. His fingers were cut. "Because if not me, then Daniel," he said without looking at her. "And you will become his, not your own his. I do not belong to anyone." "I know." Now he looked at her, and what was in his eyes stole her breath. "That is exactly why I want to help, so you stay yourself. Free." They sat in the twilight of the greenhouse, in the scent of soil and tomato leaves, and Lee felt something shift in her chest, as if a heavy stone that had lain there for months finally rolled aside. "You do not say much," she said, "but when you do, it carries weight." "Words should be heavy," he answered. "Otherwise the wind blows them away." Lee smiled for the first time in weeks. "Will you help me start it up?" They stood. Jonas checked all the connections, tightened the belts, then went to the compressor. It was old, bought used, but Jonas had cleaned every part, oiled it, tuned it. "Ready?" Lee nodded. Jonas pulled the starter handle. Once nothing. Twice the compressor coughed. A third time, and the motor roared, the belts whirled, the shafts began to turn, and the fans woke, blades slicing the air with a soft hiss. Lee went to the seedlings. Leaves trembled, leaning into the flow of air. "It works," she whispered. She turned to Jonas. He stood by the compressor, wiping his hands on his pants, and he was smiling. Not wide, not loud, quietly, as if he had seen something beautiful. "Jonas, this is incredible." "It is mechanics," he shrugged. "Nothing complicated." "For you," she stepped closer. "For me, it is salvation." She did not think. She simply hugged him quick and tight, arms around his neck, her face against his shoulder. He smelled of sawdust, sweat, machine oil. He smelled of work and something more reliability. Jonas froze. They stood like that a long time, in the thrum of the compressor and the whisper of the fans, and Lee felt her heart beat, not from fear or exhaustion, but from something else. Something warm and frightening all at once. She stepped back, quickly, heat rising in her cheeks. "I am sorry, I—" "Do not apologize." Jonas's voice was rough. "Never apologize, for goodness." They looked at each other in the tremble of the lantern light, and Lee thought, "This is dangerous. This feeling is dangerous because if you let it grow, it will fill everything, and then there will be no way back." "I have to go," she said. "Supper. The younger ones are waiting." "Yes, of course." He began to gather tools. Lee helped in silence. When the wagon was loaded, Jonas turned to her one last time. "Lee," he paused, then said it anyway, "do not give Daniel an answer. Not yet. Give yourself time to see if the system works. A week, too. If the yield rises, you will not need him." "And if it does not?" "It will," he said with such certainty that Lee nearly believed him. "Trust me." "I do," she whispered. He nodded and drove off. May arrived with warmth and blossoms, and with them pollen. It hung in the air like golden mist, settling on yards, on clothes, on hair. For most people, it was harmless. For Gid Yoder, it was deadly. It happened on a Saturday while Lee was tidying the greenhouse. She heard a scream sharp, panicked, and ran for the house, her heart hammering. Gid sat on the porch, gulping at the air. His face was red, his lips were turning blue, his eyes wide with fear. "I cannot breathe." He pulled at the air, but it would not reach his lungs. "A bee?" Lee dropped to her knees and grabbed his shoulders. "Gid, did a bee sting you?" He shook his head and pointed toward the field where ragweed grew. "Pollen," he whispered, "a lot." Lee knew Mama had warned them, the doctor had warned them. Gid had an allergy, a severe one, and if they did not inject the medicine in time. "Ruth," Lee shouted. Ruth, run to the telephone booth. Call 911. Fast. Ruth burst from the house, barefoot, skirt flying, and sprinted across the yard to the booth by the road. Lee held Gid, rubbed his back, tried to soothe him, though she trembled herself. Breathe, she whispered. Breathe, little brother, slow. Help is coming. Breathe. But Gid could not. His lips were darkening. Dad, Lee cried. Dad, where are you? Levy ran out of the barn, saw what was happening, and came at a dead run. He scooped Gid into his arms and headed for the buggy. We will not make it, Lee choked. The ambulance needs to come, the doctor said. We are going to the hospital ourselves. Levy was already harnessing the horse, his hands shaking so hard the bridle would not settle. I cannot wait. No, Lee seized his arm. Dad, if he stops breathing on the way, we need a nurse, equipment. Levy looked at her, then at Gid in his arms, and in his eyes was such helplessness, such terrible helplessness, that Lee felt something break inside her. I called. Ruth returned, breathless. They said 10 minutes. Emma is coming. Emma Collins, an English nurse from the county hospital, one who knew the Amish, respected them, did not push. She had come before, when Mama was ill. She helped and did not judge. 10 minutes, Levy repeated. He will not last. He will. Lee took Gid from him, sat on the steps, and held him upright so he could breathe more easily. You are strong, Gid, the strongest of us. Do you hear me? Gid nodded, barely. His eyes were closing. No, Lee shook him gently. Do not sleep. Look at me. Keep looking. She sang softly, Goddess die lieb, the song Mama used to sing when they were sick. Her voice shook, but she sang, and Gid watched her, catching each mouthful of air as if it were his last. 10 minutes lasted an eternity. But at last the siren, the red and white van braking at the gate. Emma jumped out with her medical bag, an epinephrine injector in hand. How long? She was already at Gid's side, checking pulse and breath. 15 minutes, Lee exhaled. Good, we are in time. Emma injected the epinephrine into Gid's thigh quick, professional. It will ease up now, kiddo. Breathe. Gid gulped air deep, ragged. Then again, color came back to his face, his lips pinked. He cried from relief, from fear. Hush, Emma hugged him. It is all right. You did well. You held on. She looked at Lee. You did well, too. You calmed him, kept him upright. That was exactly right. You bought time. Lee only nodded, not trusting her voice. But he needs to go to the hospital, Emma added, for observation. It can rebound in a few hours. Are you riding with us? Lee looked to her father. Levy stood gripping the rail, his face gray. Dad. Go, he rasped. I cannot. Not the hospital. Emma did not press, she knew. Many Amish feared hospitals, feared a world that barged in too loudly with its machines. Lee will go, Ruth said, stepping to their father's side. I will stay with Dad. Lee nodded and climbed into the ambulance with Gid. Emma shut the doors, and the van pulled away, siren wailing, the world outside the window blurring into streaks of color. At the hospital, they kept Gid for observation. Emma arranged it with the doctor his own room, no television, quiet. Lee sat by the bed holding her brother's hand. He slept, his breathing even and calm. Coffee, Emma appeared with 2 paper cups. Thank you, Lee took one, warming her hands. Emma sat beside her and sipped. This is the 2nd time this year, right? Yes, last summer it was a bee. We thought it was only bees. But the doctor said an allergy can grow and take in new things. Correct. Gid's reactions are strong. He needs to carry an epinephrine injector at all times. Always, Lee. Not sometimes always. How much does it cost? Emma paused. About $100. You need to replace it every 6 months. Lee nodded, making note. $100. Another line in a list that never ended. There are assistance programs, Emma said gently, for families in need. I can help fill out the forms. No, Lee said it more softly than she meant. Thank you, Emma, but we manage ourselves. We always have. I know, Emma's smile was sad, but sometimes ourselves is too heavy. Sometimes you can take a hand that is offered. Lee said nothing. They sat in silence, drank their coffee, and watched Gid sleep. How are your greenhouses? Emma asked at last. I heard Jonas Shetler built a new system. It works well. Lee could not stop a smile. The seedlings are stronger, growing faster. I might manage to double by the summer market. He is a good one, Emma said simply. Jonas, quiet but reliable. There are not many like that. Lee looked at her. Emma's smile held no mockery, only warmth. The community is talking. Lee looked away. The community always talks. The question is, what do you feel? I do not know, Lee whispered. I do not have time to feel. I have to work, to care for everyone, to keep it all together. Lee, Emma rested a hand on her shoulder. If you only work and never live, what will you have in the end? An empty barn? The words landed clean and hard. Lee squeezed the cup, the hot cardboard under her fingers. I am afraid, she said so quietly she barely heard herself. Afraid to feel, to want, because if I let myself and then something goes wrong, I will not bear it. I will just break. Or you will grow stronger. Emma squeezed her shoulder. Love does not break us, Lee. It makes us able to bear more. Lee looked at her brother sleeping, his small face peaceful now. She thought of her father standing by the fence, unable to climb into the ambulance. Of Ruth running barefoot to the telephone booth. Of Jonas working through 3 nights without asking for anything in return. Of how love was already here, already inside, and did not ask permission. They discharged Gid the next morning. Emma drove them home in her car, an old sedan that rattled but ran. Lee sat in the back with her brother and watched the fields slide by. Thank you, she said when Emma stopped at the gate, for everything. You are welcome. Emma handed her an epinephrine injector. This is from the hospital. No charge this time. The next one you will have to buy, but at least you have one. Lee took it and closed her fingers around it. Emma. Do not thank me, Emma smiled. Just keep him safe. And yourself too. They got out. Gid ran for the house where Ruth and Samuel were waiting. Lee remained by the car, the injector in her hand. Emma leaned out the window. Lee, one more thing. There will be church on Sunday, yes? Yes. The bishop asked about your family, about finances after the fire. I think someone told him about difficulties. Lee froze. Who? I do not know, but be ready. Amos is a good, fair man, but he does not tolerate secrets. Sunday came too fast. Levy was quiet. He moved like a shadow, helped set out the benches, but did not speak. Lee saw his hands tremble as he placed the Osbund, the songbook, on the table. Dad, she came to him while the others were in the kitchen. What is wrong? He looked at her, and in his eyes was such sorrow that Lee felt a chill in her gut. The bishop wants to speak, after the service, with the 2 of us. Levy did not answer. He turned away and walked to the barn. The service lasted 3 hours. They sang, they prayed. Bishop Amos preached about obedience and transparency before the community. Lee listened, and every word felt like a stone dropping into a well. Afterward, when everyone sat down to soup and bread, Bishop Amos came to Levy. Brother Levy, he spoke quietly, but his voice was firm. May we talk, you, Lee, and I, in the barn? The room hushed. Conversations stilled. Everyone knew. When the bishop called for a private talk, something was wrong. Levy nodded. Lee rose, her legs shaking. They walked to the new barn that still smelled of fresh lumber. Amos closed the door. Sit, he said, pointing to a bench. They sat. Amos stood across from them, hands behind his back, face stern but not hard. Levy, he began, I was told you took money from a bank. A loan. Is that true? Silence. Lee heard her heart beating loud, too loud. Levy lifted his head. True. Amos sighed. How much? 8,000. For 5 years. Why did you not come to the community? Why did you not ask for help, as is our way? Because I was ashamed, Levy clasped his hands. Because the community had already helped. The barn raising, food, feed. I could not ask for more. I could not be a burden. Pride, Amos said softly. Brother, that is pride. To think you carry the load alone, that you cannot trust your brothers, that breaks our way. I know, Levy's voice shook. I know, but I did not know what else to do. Amos looked at Leah. And you knew? No, she whispered. I learned only recently. And what did you do? I tried to help. I expanded the greenhouses and used Jonas Shetler's system. I want to double the harvest, sell at the market, and pay the debt back. Amos nodded. Jonas is a good fellow. His work does not break the Ordnung, the Amish church rules. But he paused. I was told that Daniel Byler offered you a deal. Through the English internet, that is, the outside, non-Amish world online. He did. She lifted her chin. I refused. You have not answered yet, Amos corrected her. There is a difference. He paced the barn, hands behind his back. Lee, I understand the temptation. Quick money, the easy path. But online sales, even through a go-between, are a step into a world where we lose control, where the English set the pace and make the rules. Where a community turns into a business and business becomes a god. I do not want that, Lee whispered. I just want to help my family. I know, Amos looked at her with warmth, and that is exactly why I say, do not take that road. There is another. He turned to Levy. The community will help with the debt. We will gather funds, not all 8,000, but a portion. You will repay the rest gradually from the harvest and from work. No interest, no papers. Our way. Levy looked at him, eyes filling with tears. Why? Because you are a brother. Amos put a hand on his shoulder. Because we hold together. Not because we are perfect, but because we forgive. Lee felt heat roll down her cheeks. She wiped it away quickly, but Amos saw. However, he said more sternly, there will be no more secrets. If there is a problem, you come. To me, to the brothers, to the community. We decide together. Agreed. Agreed, Levy nodded. Lee? Agreed, she barely breathed. Good. Amos walked to the door, then turned. One more thing. Jonas Shetler is a good fellow. If there is something between you and the community says there is, it is blessed. But do it right. Honestly. In the light, not in the shadows. He left, and the barn fell quiet. Levy looked at Lee. I am sorry, he whispered. Daughter, forgive me for all the secrets. She hugged him tight, tighter than she had in a long time. He felt thin and fragile in her arms, and Lee understood. He had been carrying a burden alone for so long that he had forgotten how to ask for help. Now we do this together, Dad, she whispered. Do you hear me? Together. The next day, Daniel Byler appeared by the greenhouses. Lee saw his buggy from far off, new, varnished, the horse well-bred. He was not driving like an ordinary Amish farmer, but like someone already halfway into the English world. She wiped her hands on her apron and went to meet him. Something tightened inside her, a warning, an instinct. Daniel, she nodded. Lee, he stopped the buggy, climbed down, smiling. A week has gone by. I have been waiting for your answer. It has been a complicated time. Lee chose her words carefully. My brother was in the hospital. There were meetings. I heard. Daniel stepped closer. How is Gid? Better. Home now. Thanks be to God, he said it mechanically, without real relief. So, your decision? Lee drew a deep breath. No, Daniel, I cannot accept your offer. The smile froze on his face, then slowly faded. Why? Because that is not our path. Online sales, English middlemen, it pulls us away from the community. It provides for a family. Daniel stepped closer, his voice harder. Lee, I offered you a chance. Money, stability. Your father is in debt, you know that. What matters is that I can help. Not only with the greenhouses, I offered more Lee, a partnership, a future. You offered to buy me, she said it softly, but clearly. Daniel recoiled as if she had struck him. What? No, I offered. I thought we could. Could what? Marry? Daniel, you never asked about my feelings. You spoke about money, contracts, advantage. That is not love. That is a deal. Color rose in his face. And what then? Did Jonas Shetler offer love? He does not even know how to talk to you as a man to a woman. He speaks through what he does. Lee felt a heat in her chest. He went without sleep for 3 nights to build a system for my greenhouses. He asked nothing in return. He demanded no contract or promises. He simply wanted to help. Naive, Daniel gave a short, sharp laugh. Lee, you are young. You think romance and gestures matter. In real life, what matters is money. Security, I can give that. Jonas will give you only poverty and quiet. Then I choose poverty and quiet. Daniel looked at her a long time, then nodded slowly. I understand. You have already chosen. He turned toward the buggy, then stopped. But know this, my offer will not stand forever. When the debts begin to choke, when the community cannot help, do not come to me. I do not forget refusals. He drove off, leaving Lee with a pounding heart and the realization that she had burned a bridge. There was no road back now. That evening, Lee walked to Jonas's workshop. He was working by the light of a kerosene lamp, shaping wood for a new wagon. She stood in the doorway and watched his hands move steady, unhurried, as if the world beyond the walls did not exist. Jonas. He lifted his head and set the chisel aside. Lee, he wiped his hands. Did something happen? Daniel came. Jonas went still. And I refused him. Finally, and for good. She saw the tension drop from his shoulders, saw something bright come into his eyes. Good, he said simply. That is good. He threatened me. He said he would not forget. Daniel is all about business. He will calculate the profit and forget. Do not worry. Lee stepped closer to the workbench and touched the wood he was shaping. Smooth, warm under her palm. Jonas, at the meeting Bishop Amos said, she paused, searching for words. He said that if there is something between us, it must be honest. In the open. Jonas did not answer at once. His fingers tightened on the chisel until the knuckles whitened. Is there? He asked quietly. Is there something between us? Lee looked at him, his face smoke-smudged from work, his hands nicked and calloused, his eyes dark and serious. And she answered honestly, I do not know what it is called, but when you are near, I can breathe easier. When you are gone, I wait for you to return. When you touch, she fell silent, heat rising in her cheeks. I do not know the name, but it is there. Jonas set the chisel down and stepped to her. They stood a breath apart, and Lee felt her heart trying to break through her ribs. Lee, he lifted a hand and gently touched her cheek. I want to ask your father's permission. Officially, I want to court you. Properly. Our way. She closed her eyes and leaned into his palm. Yes, she whispered. Please. He leaned in and rested his forehead against hers, and they stood like that in the quiet workshop, among the scents of sawdust and oil, and Lee thought, this is the simplest and the hardest decision of my life. I will go to him tomorrow. Jonas stepped back, but kept her hand. After work, I will do everything right. He will say yes. Lee smiled through tears. Tay-Tay, Dad loves you. He respects you. I hope so. Jonas squeezed her fingers. Because if he does not, I will still not back down. I do not know how to give up easily. Lee laughed for the first time in weeks. She laughed for real, lightly, without the weight on her shoulders. I know. I saw you pull horses out of a burning barn. They stood holding hands, and for a moment it felt as if the world had stopped. Debts, worries, the community, all of it dissolved, leaving only 2 people who had found one another in the midst of chaos. But the world does not stop. Outside, someone was already coming, heavy steps, gravel crunching. Lee let go of Jonas's hand and stepped back. He nodded, he understood. Until tomorrow, she said. Until tomorrow, he answered. She stepped out of the workshop and almost ran into Ruth. Her sister stood in the shadow, arms folded, face unreadable. Ruth. I did not see anything. Ruth said it sharply. But others could. Be careful, Lee. The community forgives much, but not everything. June began with a thunderstorm. Lee worked in the greenhouses, checking the seedlings. In a week, there would be the summer market, the last chance to sell the main crop. If she managed it, if everything grew well, she could pay off part of Tayday's debt, help the community, prove that Jonas's system worked. If a storm is coming, Gid stood in the doorway, watching the sky. A big one. I know, Lee tied up tomato stems. Will you help me close the windows? They worked together, shutting the vents and securing the glass panels. The compressor rumbled, the fan spun, but Lee could see the wind rising. Trees bent, leaves tore free and flew. Levy ran across the yard. Everyone into the house. Now, but the greenhouses. Now, this is not up for debate. She grabbed Gid's hand, and they ran for the house. Lee stood at the window, staring into the gray curtain of rain. She could not see the greenhouses, but she imagined it. Wind slamming the glass, straps pulling taut, Jonas's system straining at the limit. Do not think about it. Ruth put an arm around her shoulders. They will hold. But at 3 in the afternoon, something cracked, a loud, sharp sound that cut through even the thunder. Lee lunged for the door. No, Levy caught her. You cannot go out in that. My plants, everything is there. Dad, everything. Your life is more important. They struggled, but Levy was stronger. He held her until she stopped fighting, until she sank to the floor, crying from helplessness. The storm lasted 3 hours. When it finally eased, the sky cleared and the sun broke through the clouds, golden and indifferent. Lee ran out first. The yard was full of puddles, branches, debris. She sprinted toward the greenhouses, heart pounding, a prayer on her lips. The roof was torn off. Glass panels shattered. Straps broken, rollers lying on the floor among water and soil. The seedlings most snapped and ruined. Only a few tables in the corner had survived, sheltered by the wall. Lee dropped to her knees in a puddle, hands in the dirt, and screamed not words, just a cry, releasing the pain that had been building for months. Lee. Jonas. He appeared soaked and out of breath. He was limping worse. He must have run through the storm. Your leg, she whispered. Jonas, you are hurt. Forget my leg. He dropped beside her and held her. Lord, I saw the roof rip off and thought you were inside. I was not, she sobbed into his shoulder. But everything, Jonas, everything is gone. The summer market, the debts, the chance, all of it. He held her, stroked her back, and said nothing. What can words do when they weigh nothing? The community came at sunset. Amos, brothers, sisters with shovels, tarps, food. We will patch it by Monday, Amos said, surveying the damage. You will make the market with what survived. Not much, but something. Not enough, Lee whispered. Not even close. Amos looked at her a long moment, then nodded. Perhaps not everything is measured in money, child. He went to help the others. Lee stayed among the ruins, looking at the broken plants, and thought, if not money, then what? Prayer? Faith? They do not feed horses, and they do not pay debts. Lee. Daniel Byler stood at the edge of the greenhouse, hands in his pockets. His face was serious, but there was something like satisfaction in his eyes. What are you doing here? Lee rose. I heard about the storm. I came to see whether I could help. Now, after I refused you, Daniel smiled. I told you, I do not forget refusals, but I also do not forget opportunities. He stepped closer, picking his way through the wreckage. Lee, my offer still stands. Even now, I will buy what survived at twice the price. I will give an advance for repairs. Whatever you need, just say yes. Lee looked at him, at his confident smile, his neat hands, and felt not relief but disgust. At what price, Daniel? What do you want in return? The same as before. A partnership. Long-term. Me. Both of us, he corrected. Together we could. No. The smile vanished. Lee, be sensible. Look around you. Everything is destroyed. The debts are choking you. The community will not pull you out this time. They have their own problems after the storm. I am your only chance. Then I will remain without a chance, she said firmly. Daniel looked at her a long time, then nodded slowly. Your choice. But when everything finally collapses, do not say that I did not offer. He left, and Lee stood among the wreckage with the feeling that she had just rejected a life preserver. And now she was sinking. That night Lee could not sleep. She lay staring at the ceiling, adding up the losses. 3 tables of seedlings had survived out of 12. That might cover, perhaps, $500 at the market. Tete's debt was $8,000. The community had promised to help with half, but after the storm. She got up quietly so as not to wake Ruth. She went downstairs and stepped onto the porch. The night was clear, the stars sharp after the storm. The air smelled of wet earth and broken plants. You are awake. Lee started. Jonas sat on the porch steps, back against a post. She had not seen him in the dark. I cannot sleep. She sat beside him. You either? I was thinking about the system, about what went wrong. Everything went wrong. The storm. No, Jonas shook his head. A storm is nature, but the straps snapped. They should not have. I checked them. They were strong. Something else. He fell silent, staring into the dark. What? Lee leaned toward him. Jonas, what are you thinking? Nothing. Just, he sighed. Forget it. But Lee saw his face tense, intent. He suspected something and would not say. Jonas, if something is wrong. I will look in daylight tomorrow. He cut in. This is not the time. They sat in silence. Somewhere far away an owl called, and the wind moved through the leaves. I am afraid, Lee whispered. I am afraid I will not make it. That everything Mother asked to keep the family, to hold us together, I will break. I will let it fall apart. Jonas turned to her, and in the dark she could barely see his face. Lee, you are the strongest person I know. Not because you do not fall, but because every time you do, you get up again. And if I cannot get up anymore, he reached out and took her hand in his warm, calloused, steady. Then I will help you. We do it together, remember? Not you alone. Us. At dawn, Jonas went back to the greenhouses. Lee saw him from the kitchen window, limping among the debris, bending, lifting, examining. She walked out with coffee in her hands. Did you find anything? He turned, his face gray. Yes. Look. He held out a strap, or what was left of it. Lee took it and ran her fingers along the edge. The tear was not ragged, as from stress. It was smooth. Too smooth. Someone cut it, she whispered. Jonas, this was not the storm. Someone did this on purpose. Not just one, he showed another strap, also with a clean cut midway through. Enough so that the system would fail in a storm. When the wind hit, the straps tore where they had been weakened. Lee felt a coldness in her gut. Who would do that? Jonas did not answer. He just looked toward the road. No, Lee shook her head. Daniel would not. He is Amish. He is a brother. He could not. Lee, Jonas turned to her, sorrow in his eyes. I am becoming dependent. Desperate. Yes. Lee sank onto the bench by the wall. The coffee cooled in her hands. But we cannot prove it. It could have been anyone. In the storm, in the dark. Not anyone, the voice behind them was firm. Ruth stood in the doorway, her face pale. I saw. Lee flinched. What? 3 days ago. In the evening. I went to check on the chickens and saw someone coming out of the greenhouse. I thought it was you. But the gate was different. Why did you not say so? Because I was not sure. Ruth stepped closer, hands clenched. I saw only a silhouette, a dark figure. I could have been wrong. Lee stood so fast the coffee sloshed over. We are going to the bishop. Now. Jonas laid a hand on her shoulder. Lee, think. Ruth saw a silhouette. A buggy. That is not proof. Daniel will deny it, and without witnesses. Then what? She turned on him, her voice breaking into a cry. Let him walk away. No, Jonas said calmly. We will make him confess. How? He did not answer right away. He looked at the greenhouses, at the ruined system, then at Lee. Do you trust me? Always. Then give me a day. One day. That evening, Jonas drove to Daniel Byler's store. It stood at the edge of the Amish district by an English road, a big building full of tourist goods, quilts, furniture, faceless dolls, baskets. From the outside, it looked traditional, but inside there were a cash register, air conditioning, hidden cameras. Daniel stood behind the counter, talking with an English couple. He smiled broadly and gestured. Yes, this is made by real Amish hands. Without electricity, only traditional methods. The couple nodded, admiring the quilt. Jonas waited by the door. When the tourists paid and left, Daniel noticed him. Jonas Shetler, he did not sound surprised. A rare visitor. What brings you? Jonas walked to the counter and set a cut strap on it. This. Daniel looked. His face stayed neutral. A strap, and it is from Lee's greenhouses. Cut. On purpose. 3 days before the storm. Sad to hear, Daniel nudged the strap aside. But that has nothing to do with me. No. Jonas leaned closer. Ruth Yoder saw a man by the greenhouses that evening. Your buggy on the road. Daniel smiled, but the smile did not reach his eyes. Ruth is a child. She could be mistaken. It was dark. Many buggies look alike. But you do not deny that you were there. I do not deny anything. There is nothing to deny. Daniel straightened and folded his arms. Jonas, did you come to accuse me? With no witnesses, no proof. That is not our way. If you have a complaint, go to the bishop. Let the community judge. The community will judge, Jonas said quietly. But first you will confess. Why would I? Daniel laughed. Why confess to something I did not do? Jonas took something small and metal from his pocket and set it on the counter. A knife. A folding one with engraving on the handle, DB. Daniel went pale. Where did you? I found it by the greenhouses, beneath the bench where you cut the straps. You dropped it when you hurried off. Jonas pushed the knife closer. It is yours, your name, your proof. Daniel looked at the knife, then at Jonas. The smile was gone for good. What do you want? The truth, in front of the community. And if I say no, then I will show the knife to the bishop, and he can decide. A long pause. Daniel paced the shop, hands behind his back, face tight. Fine, he said at last. Yes, I cut the straps. Are you satisfied? Why? Because she refused me, Daniel burst out, his voice loud and harsh. Lee Yoder refused me, I offered her everything, money, security, a future, and she chose you. A tongue-tied cripple who barely scrapes by. Jonas did not flinch. He simply looked at him, calm, waiting. I thought, Daniel lowered his voice, if her system failed, she would see she needed me. That you could not give her what I could. I did not want anything terrible. Just to help fate along a little. You destroyed her crop. Her only chance to pay down the debts. The storm destroyed it. You set the conditions. Jonas lifted the knife. That is the same as destroying it with your own hand. Daniel sank into the chair behind the counter and dropped his head into his hands. What now? You will go to Amos. No, you will go. Yourself. At the meeting on Sunday, you will confess before everyone. They will shun me. Perhaps. That depends on how sincere you are. Jonas turned for the door, then looked back. But if you do not go on your own, I will come with the knife, and then there will be no leniency. Sunday came bright and sunny. The meeting was at the miller's house. A large community gathered, more than 100 people. They sang and prayed, and Bishop Amos read about forgiveness and repentance. After the service, before dinner, Daniel Byler stood. Bishop, his voice trembled. May I address the community? Silence. Amos nodded. Daniel walked to the front and stood before them all. His face was pale, his hands shook. I want to confess, he began, to confess a sin I committed. I damaged the ventilation system in Lee Yoder's greenhouses, deliberately. The community stirred. Voices rose angry, shocked. I did it. Daniel raised his voice because I was proud, because I thought I deserved her more than others, because I wanted to buy what cannot be bought. He looked at Lee, sitting between her father and Jonas. I am sorry. I cannot return what I destroyed, but I ask for forgiveness, truly. Amos stood and came to him. Brother Daniel, you have confessed. That is good, but confession is only the beginning. What are you prepared to do to make it right? Daniel paused, then said, I will pay Lee the value of the lost crop from my own funds, with no interest and no conditions, and I will help rebuild the system, if she allows it. Everyone looked to Lee. She sat with her hands clenched on her knees. Jonas touched her shoulder lightly. She rose. Daniel, her voice was calm and steady. What you did hurt. Not only me, but my family and the community. You broke trust. I know. But she paused. Our way is forgiveness. Not because you have earned it, but because God commands it. I accept your apology and your compensation. But trust must be earned again. Over years, perhaps. Daniel nodded, eyes wet. Thank you. I will try. I promise. Amos laid a hand on his shoulder. Community, does anyone have something to say? Silence. Then one of the elders, Brother Eli, stood. Daniel has confessed. That is brave. I vote for forgiveness, but with a condition. He will do service for the community, without pay. 3 months. He will help those in need. He will show by his deeds that he has changed. Others nodded. Amos looked at Daniel. Do you agree? I agree. Then the community forgives. But it will remember, do not repeat this, brother. After dinner, Jonas walked to Levi Yoder. They stood apart under an old oak. Levi, Jonas took off his hat and turned it in his hands. I want to ask permission to court Lee, officially. Levi studied him for a long moment, then smiled for the first time in months, a real smile. Jonas, you have already been courting her. For months. You simply did not call it that. I want to call it that. Properly. Does she know you are here? No. I had to come to you first. Our way. Levi put a hand on his shoulder. You are a good man, Jonas. Quiet, but strong. That is exactly what my daughter needs. You have my blessing. Jonas felt warmth spread through his chest. Thank you. In the evening, when everyone had gone home, Lee and Jonas sat on the porch. The sky darkened and the first stars appeared. Dad told me, Lee said softly. Told you what? That you asked his permission. Jonas looked away, the back of his neck reddening. I wanted to tell you myself. I know, she smiled, but I am glad Dad told me, because if you had said it, I would probably have cried. As it is, I already did that inside. He looked at her. Why did you cry? Because I am happy. For the first time in months, simply happy. She took his hand. Jonas, I do not know what will come, whether I can rebuild the greenhouses or pay down the debts. But I know one thing. With you beside me, I am not afraid, even when everything falls apart. He squeezed her fingers. Lee, I am not rich. I am not eloquent. I can only work and love. Is that enough? More than enough, she whispered. When? Jonas asked. When what? The wedding. When would you like it? Lee thought for a moment. In the fall. When the harvest is in, when the debts are cleared or at least being paid down. When I can become your wife without bringing a burden with me. A burden is something we carry together, Jonas said seriously. Not by turns. Then in the fall, she smiled. October. When the leaves are gold and the air is cold. My favorite time. It is my favorite now, too. They sat late into the night, making plans a small house by his shop, greenhouses close by, children running up with questions, a steady rhythm of life where work and faith walk side by side. And when Lee finally went to bed, she fell asleep without worries, without fear, because she knew that whatever happened, she was not alone. Subscribe to our channel so you do not miss out, because this is nothing compared to what is coming next. If you are under 18, do not even think about clicking next.